cue me and tell me when to talk.
Yeah, it'll just
All right.
coming out of it.
I've turned this on. Is that okay? Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So use your guy.
Perfect. But there's no more video in the middle of the.
No, once you have it, it's all yours.
Sweet. Thanks.
Okay. Ladies, we're ready. You want to start the video? Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to 2020's Most Powerful Women panel discussion presented by the Nashville Post and Nfocus. I'm Kelly Sutton, the editor of Nashville Post, and it is my honor to get things started today. We are coming to you from the LA Jackson rooftop bar at the Thompson Hotel in the Gulch, and we have a great conversation on leadership and growth primed up for you here. So before we get going, there's a couple of things I need to take care of. I need to say a huge thank you to our presenting sponsor, PNC Bank. They are back with us this year after they joined us for the first time last year, and we really appreciate it. You may have seen them in the news the other day. They announced just this week a sponsorship with the Ryman Auditorium, so that's an interesting development, good development for them. I also want to thank the teams at Thistle Farms and Postmates for their sponsorship today. Many of you are probably digging into a good lunch from the cafe at Thistle Farms right now. Hope you're enjoying that. Thanks to Thistle Farms and thanks to Postmates as well. I also want to thank our partners at Bright Event Productions and the LA Jackson here for their help. Bright's on the technical side of things, and we appreciate them taking care of that for us, and appreciate the team at the LA Jackson here for helping us get comfortable and give you the best presentation we can. One quick housekeeping item, the question Q&A session, you don't have to wait to submit questions until the end. Feel free to contribute those at any point in time in the conversation bar on the right of your screen as you're watching. So that's always there for you. One more quick thing is before I turn it over to our moderator, Kelly Sutton from Channel 4, is that we're partnering with the Most Powerful Women program as we did last year with Nfocus's model behavior feature as well. That's been something that Nfocus has done for 16 years to honor the great people who are supporting the local nonprofits in various ways. So this year, for the first time, they've honored 20 people. In the August issue of Nfocus, you will have seen the first all-male lineup. And here in September's issue, they're also shining a spotlight on 10 great female leaders. So before we turn it over to Kelly, here's a short video to tell you a little bit more about model behavior. We're very happy you could join us today. Really excited about the next hour, and we hope that we can inspire you and give you lots to think about as you go away. Thanks again.
This is all oh, good. Welcome, everybody. We are so excited that you are a part of this at home. We're excited to be out of the house. I for one, am. I'm Kelly Sutton. I'm so happy to be the moderator of the Most Powerful Women Luncheon. I walked in this room and I felt the power happening off of these four ladies. So I'm so happy that you guys decided to come and be here with us. I mean, I know most people are familiar, but we're just going to give a real quick little backstory. Jane Allen, CEO of Nashville Entrepreneur Center, also Hannah Clark Handbag Company, which I need to see.
Yes, you do.
Yes, honey, I need to get in on the handbags. I've got Mignon Francois over here. She's an incredible dancer. I know she likes to keep that under her hat. She and I became friends at the Safe Haven event with the founder and CEO of the Cupcake collection. now expanded into New Orleans. Yay. So she's a franchise now. That's amazing. Reverend Becca Stevens is here, founder of Thistle Farms. It's so good to see you. So glad that you're doing well. And last but certainly not least, Miss Shanna Jackson is here, the president of Nashville State Community College. All of these ladies powerful, all of them amazing, and all of them here to teach us their ways. So ladies, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the panel. Let's get started. Jane, I just want to know where you ended up now. We can look at you and go, absolutely a model, a powerful woman, but there's a long journey. So how did you decide to step out of the law practice and go to the Entrepreneur Center and start your own place as well?
No, sure. I actually, in practicing law, I just saw a lot of women leaving the profession and thought there's got to be a way to allow, at that time, I thought women connect and stay in the practice, and created Counsel on Call as the vehicle for which that would happen. Now, of course, it ended up working with men and women, and we ended up continuing to expand and offer different services for law firms and corporate legal departments, and eventually sold a majority interest to private equity. And I'm still on the board and still very much a part of the company. But the reality is they don't need me. They're so good. That's the thing. When you hire people who are better than you, eventually you get to the point you're really not needed. And so anyway, but no. And so the Entrepreneur Center is an organization I've always supported financially, because as I was telling these ladies earlier, entrepreneurs in this community were willing to take meetings with me and give me their time and help my husband and me figure out how to really start, grow, and run a business. And so it was a way to pay it forward. And so when they asked if I would be willing to step in with people like Mignon and other amazing board members and the entrepreneurial community, how can you say no?
You know, I think that is kind of a reoccurring theme, don't you, Mignon, that it's community? Because you were in Germantown, 2008, you're like, I'm going to do this. What was that first step like for you?
Oh, it was like, are you going to step out here, and is there going to be another step? I think that what people need to know is that you're not going to have everything, and you don't need to have everything. That you start where you are, and that's enough for right now. It's like just enough light for the step that I'm on. And for me, it was, I was going to need a big, gigantic mixer and a giant, walk-in freezer and all that kind of stuff. But it was a dorm-sized refrigerator and a KitchenAid mixer that I opened my store with, because that would get me past code. And that was 12 years ago, and to the tune of all kinds of awards and all, right. in more than one city. And I just think that that's what people need to know. You start where you are with what you have, and that's enough to serve just today. Tomorrow, we'll think about something different. But today we're going to worry about just a little dorm size refrigerator.
So it is, you're going to have that vision, and you're going to have that, let's look at it from the 50,000 foot level, but don't get caught up in flying up here. Let's stay on the first step.
Because you don't need it today.
Right.
And so that's what I want people to know.
I love that. Becca, let's talk a little bit about Thistle Farms and where you've come. It's been an incredible journey for you from where you started. Looking back, did you ever imagine that it would become what it is today?
I'm probably surprised it's not bigger.
Okay.
I mean, kind of, because I think it's a really, really good idea. And I totally relate to the idea of you just start where you are and you keep going. And for us, I mean, that meant one house, in Sylvan Park, and then opening this bath and body care company because women weren't getting hired. There was no entrepreneur center. There was none of that going on. And so what we wanted to do was just start making it. So we made it in a pot. We started making candles in a pot. They're not that hard to make, but ours are the highest quality, not hard to make products that you can get. And I also think community is the whole thing, the entity that holds us up, the entity that holds us accountable. And the more women gather and come together to support each other and really lift each other up, we remember justice is a non-competitive sport, that it is this work that we're doing together. But I will say I'm not a competitive person, but I do have a little bit of shoe thing going on right now. I mean, I'm all for power and all of that, but I'm like, I don't generally wear shoes, but I thought I should wear shoes for this. And then I'm like, Oh my gosh, yours have like sparkles underneath, underneath it, and the gold and the leopard print. But it's like, I mean, it's real. Y'all are. That shows power right there. I'm with y'all on that. Sorry.
Something that makes you feel good. That's the thing. Like, I can do anything else, but if I have on good shoes, it changes my whole mood. I think that's
I
just
feel the
part of
same
it.
way, and that's
Thank
why I wear tennis shoes with everything.
I
mean, I've got to have tennis shoes that match anything.
Wow.
So formal gown, I'm gonna have on tennis shoes. Probably
Right.
some high tops.
That's awesome.
Maybe Jordans. I
See,
don't know.
and
you're
I feel the
comfortable.
best
You'll
when
be
I kick them off. When I have no shoes on. I've preached barefoot for almost 30 years now, and you know, if I go to an award show or do anything, and I was like, I can't just sit here barefoot right on video. People will be like, something's wrong with her. Anyway,
They just feel that you're great. But you know what? Here's what I do want to reach out, and I have to bring this up, Shanna, because she mentioned community, and especially women. There are not very many women in the position that you are in. How did you find a community in being the president of a college when very few females are holding that position?
Well, I'll have to start with when I was a little girl, I intended to be the first black female president of the United States. So had always aspired to be the leader. Why, I don't know. I actually moved to Nashville to work for the Pillsbury Company in Murfreesboro. So being a college president at the age of 20 when I came to Nashville was not a thought. So what happened was I had an opportunity to teach. And the community part really came in because I saw the power of education and action. And being with students who weren't raised in a two-parent college home with college-educated parents really changed things for me because I believe strongly, and you'll see the theme throughout of all these women we're talking to, that education is the strongest rung to the ladder of economic and social mobility. So I think when I got into the community college system in 2000, I realized I wanted to be the president. And so I didn't see many women. There were no African American women presidents in the early 2000s. And so I just desired to be that and just had a lot of wonderful sponsors and mentors in my life to make that possible. So I don't have a traditional journey. A lot of people go faculty, dean, vice president of academic affairs. I did a really crazy journey. And I think that's because I led with what was important to me, our community, and making it better through education.
You know, in hearing this, I feel like anybody that's watching today, if they're watching because they're an entrepreneur, if they're watching because they've already started their business and they're just wondering, how do I get to the next level? The thing that seems like the common thread through everyone is that sense of community. I don't know of anyone who is ultimately uber successful that did not have someone helping them along the way. So let's talk a little bit about those that have come in behind you and really helped you. Is there somebody that you can remember, or even an instance when somebody maybe whispered something in your ear that made you kind of, it clicked, it all came together?
For me, there's a lot of people, and so it's hard to really narrow to just one. But after I graduated law school, I had the benefit of clerking for an amazing human being named Edward Johnstone, and he was a federal court judge in Western Kentucky. And he was probably the first professional mentor that he really talked to me about keeping the playing field level and access for all, and just doing something that you love and that you feel really good about. Mm-hmm. And then I always say I'm blessed to be married to a man who is probably one of the brightest people I know, who helps keep me online. And so like I'll have ideas and it was like, really, Jane? Is that really? But on the other hand, when Counsel on Call, it was him coming to me saying, you're doing something that really can transform the legal profession. Mm-hmm. And why not now? Like, because I'm like, oh, but we've got 3 little kids under 3 years old, and we've got this. And he was like, why not now? And so he gave me the courage, quite frankly, maybe pushed me out a little bit, and has continued each day, even with the Entrepreneur Center. It was, I know I'm going to be retired. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Go do it. Go do it. Make an impact. Have a positive impact. And so I would say those 2 men have really, and then of course I have my sister, I have my mother. I mean, there's a lot of amazing women and men that have really helped. People that believed in the vision came to work with us in the very early days. There's just so many. It's hard to really identify, but if I'm going to have to limit, it's those two.
Well, and just the fact that you have somebody, like you said, you're the dreamer and you're the big vision, and then to have somebody that can help you funnel that down to things that are actually actionable. Like, that's okay, that's great, that's a great dream. Let's put that here, and then let's figure out how to get from here to there.
And
That's
he's
what
very
you-
entrepreneurial as well,
Yeah.
but I call him more the realist, and I'm more the optimist.
Oh, I like
And
that.
so, but yeah, so it's just a really nice balance. So you can only imagine our 4 children.
I love it. Mignon, what about you?
I agree with you, Jane. How do you say it's just one person? I think you have to look at the journey and see where you're going to pick that from. But if I was going to pick one, I think it would be my neighbor, Joni Dixon. And Joni, I would say she was like the mayor of our town, Shermantown. And she had come over to my house, knocked on the door, and said, listen, those cupcakes that you're making, I'm going to give them to all of my clients. So just get in there and start making them, and when you get some, I'll pay you. But I didn't have any money. And as a matter of fact, the day that she knocked on my door and asked me for them, I was sitting in the house with no electricity because I couldn't afford it. And Joni has this, way about her that makes you feel like you have to do what she says. And so I accepted her order, per se, closed the door, and went in and had a conversation with the Lord. Like, God, how are you giving me this opportunity when I have no money to take it? And I heard God say, but I feed birds, and they don't toil for anything. I got my shoes on. I took the only $5 that I had. I walked to the store, and I started working on that order. And I had enough to give her something that she could pay me for. And I turned that 5 into 60 that day. And then to 600 by the end of the week. That's the same money I've been flipping for the last 12 years. And so I would say that she was loving them so much that she put her faith currency behind them to say, I want to give this to people and they're going to come back here and buy more. Just watch and see. And that's why I want people to know you don't have to have everything. You just have to have enough faith to believe, and that's the money. That's the power to get things done. All you need is somebody to believe, to give some of their faith currency to you, to make you operate. And so if I had one person, just like you, Jane, I don't even know how I could just say there was one.
Right.
But she would be the start.
Faith currency. I've never heard that phrase before, and now it's mine. I'm adopting that. Faith currency.
It is a phrase I truly use as faith has the same characteristics of money.
Yeah.
According to your faith, things come to you. According to how much money you have in the bank, you can spend, right? If you just have a little bit, it can go a long way. The same thing as with faith. And so I believe that faith is the power, it's the currency that will perform for you. Money doesn't have any power except that it's paper and we believe in it. It's the faith behind it because we've seen it in action. We know what we can do. If I can just get some of that, this is what it will do for me. It's not the paper. It's the action that you put behind it. And that's why I believe faith is currency. It works just as powerfully, even more so than money.
Don't you drop that mic, but I want you to drop the mic, but don't do it because we still got more talking to do. That's amazing. Becca, you've had so many people and so many amazing stories from the beginning of starting Thistle Farms and the lives that you've impacted. Can you share one of those stories with us that hit you and maybe made you have that aha moment in the early years?
The aha moment of what?
The aha moment of this is exactly what I need to be doing and we're going to do it even bigger.
So one of the stories from the women, you mean?
If you have one.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
I know. If you
I
have
will
one of
say
the
I
1,000.
just left this morning. So we're over on Charlotte. The national headquarters for Thistle Farms lives on Charlotte Avenue. But we have 50 sister communities around the country with about 350 beds now and 30 global partners. And it's a big operation. If you've never been over there, if you've never seen it. But on Wednesday mornings, we gather in a circle. So we're in the manufacturing space, which is the building behind Charlotte. And we're all gathered in there and massed up, probably 60 people. Everybody from Hal Cato, who's the CEO, who's doing such beautiful work, to women who are just coming in for like 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, or women who have been there 20 years. Katrina, who's, the national head of sales, who graduated, in the early 2000s from the residential program. So we're standing in there today, and there's one particular woman named Sheila who her story is basically her trafficking started around the age of 5 from her mom. And she ended up running away on the street. She tells the story beautifully, but even being bound and gagged and thrown in a salt lake. And just horrible story. She ended up being taken to Memphis, where she left her trafficker, her pimp, came to Nashville, and went to jail for the last time because many, many times, we criminalize victims in our systems, and she was definitely part of that journey. She came in and she said pretty soon into it, someday I'm going to run this program. So 2 weeks ago, she became the residential director of the entire program. She, through education, went and got her undergraduate, then graduate degree. And she stood there in the circle this morning, and I was thinking, of course she had that in her. What the miracle is, what the faith currency is that she in a community stayed together through all the ups and downs, through the tornadoes, through the droughts, through the floods, through all of it. To see that come to fruition, it takes time. And I was like, I'm so glad this community of Nashville, that all these sisters in this program stayed with her, and she stayed with us long enough to realize that dream, because what you're hearing on this stage it is not quick. It's not a grassroots movement. It's like you're building tree roots to grow something amazing. And there's a beauty of knowing that, an acorn has a 100-year-old oak in it, but that takes some time. And so this morning I got to see the oak, and I'm full.
What a gift.
I'm full. And I'm like, her sisters were telling her, you changed my life when I was there. We're so happy, and you're creating this community for the next group of women. So I'm in for the long haul.
Man, what an amazing story. I know you've got so many more. That's just incredible. Shanna, you're in a very unique position, because as we've heard and as we've been listening to these ladies talk about their journey, you are impacting these lives that are coming in and starting their journey. You have the opportunity being there when they are getting that education. How do you handle that, and where do you hope this leads? What is your true ambition in being there? What do you want to do for the next generation?
Wow, what a question. And I have to come behind you. That is just, can I move my seat?
Did you see how she looked?
And then I don't know who I would sit next to. So
I don't
thank
know
you.
who I
Thank you
would
for,
sit. We get to sit next to you.
thank you for that question. I do, if I can. The first
Yes.
question you went around with, I just want to say this for our leaders. One of the things I think that we get into, and as I was doing this journey to the presidency, was thinking you had to check every box.
Right.
And so in my journey of starting in the classroom and then being in this weird position called director of off-campus, I've met some wonderful people. But when I went to Columbia State, there was a president, she's still there, Dr. Janet Smith, who pushed me. And sometimes you need people to push you. And so I kept thinking I need to go from this position to that position. And there was a presidency open, not Nashville State, but another one. And she said, you should apply. I go, oh, no, I don't want to apply to that. I'm not ready yet. And she let it go, but then she eventually took me to lunch, which she never did. her assistant called and said, "President wants to take you to lunch." And she got in my face and told me, "You said you wanted to be a president. You need to put your name in the hat." And I was actually a finalist. I wasn't selected, but that gave me the sense of confidence that I was ready for the next step. So I just want to encourage everyone out there that sometimes we look at the list of 10 things as women and think we have to check every box. Men see 2, they check it off, and they apply. So apply. Whatever it is you're thinking about doing right now, if you've got a few things checked off that list, you should put your name in the hat. So I do want to encourage that. But as far as education, the one thing that I see that's so special about Nashville State is we're in Nashville. Now, we serve 6 other counties. Coming in the 90s and looking and seeing how Nashville has evolved has just been fantastic. But what I saw the last 5 years or so is this importing of talent into the region. So we're the IT city, we celebrate that, but we're importing talent in our own communities. People that were born, lived here, generations are getting further behind. So I see Nashville State as the way to close that equity gap, that we need to give students coming out of Metro, adults that did not pursue higher education, and those that need to retool or retrain, the opportunity to take that aptitude and give them the opportunity to pursue an education. And sometimes it's just to get a base so they can go off and be a wonderful entrepreneur. They certainly have other avenues to develop, but there's so many opportunities I think that we miss ourselves. So for Nashville State, and my vision is that we're going to help close this equity gap. We know that there are inequities that exist.
Yeah.
We can say they're systemic, which they are. We can say they're institutionalized, but Nashville State needs to be that place that people can go and get what they need and get on to a wonderful life. Transfer to a 4-year finish and become the program person, or go right to work. And so that's my vision for Nashville State. We are this community, Nashville's college.
You know, can I just ask?
Sure.
Add one thing to what we're talking about, and if I had to add people to my list, I would definitely. There's a bunch of folks, but I would name Charlie Strobel for sure. Has been one of my friends and mentors along the way, and love him. But what I would say too, though, is along this way, and you could go back around, and we probably don't have time to do any of that. But there's also people in spite of. There's mentors, and then there's the people that propel you, like she did, but there's also some people that, because of the brokenness that you experienced, or because of that, it helped propel you too. You know, that I do believe that brokenness can be transformative in our lives into something that is about compassion and generosity and leadership and all of those things. So I think if the closer some of, for everybody here, the closer we can get to seeing those sometimes as gifts in our lives too, gifts that we would never have asked for. But sometimes I think part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is not because some people were so nice, but some people were so abusive. And I understood the need for sanctuary and safety for folks.
I agree. Like, that's what I was thinking as I was listening to the story that you were sharing. I always like to encourage people to know that what's happening to you is actually happening for you. Because if the biblical principle is true that all things work together for your good, then that means all things, not some things and not sometimes, all the time. So whatever's going on or whatever is happening, it is being pieced together to take you from where you are to where it is you're going to be. When she said, I'm going to run this place one day, she couldn't run this place one day had she not had the experiences that she had to be fabulous at running this place and be able to stand with people who say, the way you made us feel, because I know how you feel. Because I've been there before. And it's like everything, when you ever ask successful people about the journey, you never hear them say, oh, I wouldn't have gone through that, or that they trade anything. That the biggest thing about this is that it's hard. And if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it. So then you just do it hard, so, if you want to get, if you want to get somewhere. So I just wanted to echo that.
No, and I mean, that's one thing I've been saying with, everything going on, COVID, the pandemic, everything else going on, and people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. because the reality is in difficult times are where problems need to be solved. And people are open for disruption.
Right.
And entrepreneurs usually create something that's a bit disruptive. And so it's, to me, there's never, or if you've been laid off, you haven't had the courage to take that first step because it's still shaky. You know what? Now you're being given an opportunity possibly. And so it's the same. It's, yes, difficult times, you know, it makes you tougher and it makes you sharper. And that's what I say, even as a company living through September 11th and then living through 2008, it made us a better company. It made me a better leader. And again, you learn such important lessons. So echo everything, and you're right. Sometimes you got to listen to the haters to motivate you too, you know, because there are going to be people that try to hold you back or keep you in a box or tell you what you can't do, in addition to those that are pushing you forward.
I love that. So I have to go back because you said something, Shanna, and it just sparked. I was like, oh, this is something that I know I have struggled with, and I feel like a lot of people probably struggle with, maybe don't want to admit it. Were you afraid to succeed?
What an interesting question. Probably somewhere down deep, but nothing you would recognize, right? Because I had a mother that taught me to dream. So I could do anything and I could be anything. I just needed to trust God and work hard. So I always knew I would be a president. That was not the question. The question was, how was I going to get there? So for me, I think it's more of a not always taking advantage of every opportunity because you're not sure if that's the right one to make. But in my head, I was always moving forward. You know, I was always pressing towards the goal. Didn't know when it would happen. And I think I'm very unique that I moved to my home in 2000 and haven't moved since. You know, the same home I raised my kids in. And normally we've got to move and go to different states. And so I do think the Lord, I think about all of the things that happen, like, who would have thought I would answer a paper ad to teach business courses? I had never taught anything before, and someone took a chance on me, and it would change my whole life, like my whole outlook. Education I took for granted. I was supposed to go to college, but to meet students that they're the first in their family, we still have too many of those. Too many people, there's still not anyone in their family to go. So the success part, I think for me, you always deal with the, well, if I don't give it as much effort and it doesn't work out, well, then I didn't give it as much effort. I think I struggle a little bit more with, I'm so busy, I'm just going to do a little bit here. And if it doesn't work out, you know, I didn't give it my full, but I always knew that I would get to this seat, but I didn't know what city, I didn't know when, because you mentioned a few things. I went back to get my doctorate when I had 2 little bitty kids, and it was hard. I worked full time. I had a full-time job, and I was almost a full-time student, but my husband was there to support, and I just took it piece by piece. And so I want to go back to something you said. This disruption, it's happening in higher education. Boy, have we been disrupted. But to me, it's a time to innovate. It's a time to accelerate some of the things that we needed to do at Nashville State. We were very much a college-ready college. You need to be ready academically and supportive, and so we've done a pivot to focus on student success, but this is like pushing us forward to say it is all about the student. It is all about getting students to and through Nashville State so they can be successful in whatever it is that they want to do.
I love the fact that you are so nimble in the fact you would pivot like that, because there are really big corporations right now, and that pivot sounds like a squeak. It's like they're not pivoting. Because it is hard, it is difficult, and since we're on that topic, let's talk about what it looks like to run a business, to be successful in the age of COVID. This is a different look for all of us. I'm making TV out of my basement every day, so I know all of you feel it. What have you had to change, and what do you feel is going to come out of this, almost like a renaissance? You mentioned now's the best time to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think exactly what you just said. Innovation is going to drive us out of this, and that's what we're seeing. And even yesterday we had our first, it was so awesome, we had our first team meeting in person, and everybody came together to talk about the last 6 months and then to talk about what we're going to do going forward. We have an amazing person, Brim Plummer, who put this together for us. But one of the people said, we're a better organization Because again, through difficult times, you're able to really do a little bit of self-reflecting instead of run, and you're able to look at what's really important. The students are most important. The entrepreneurs are most important. What do entrepreneurs need? What are the resources they need that we can surround them with to increase their probability of success? And let's get to that. And let's make sure we're surrounding them and that we're there for the entire entrepreneurial community and that we really are level the playing field. And so it really is, for us as an organization, yes, we've had to make some hard choices. Yes, we have budgetary issues. Yes, we are doing, but we're doing exactly what our entrepreneurs are doing. So, I mean, we are living it side by side, day by day, trying to make sure that what we do is having the most impact and driving the most value to those that matter. We're trying to work with our business community. What is it that you need to stay innovative and forward thinking? Let us then work with the entrepreneurial community and come up with solutions so that we marry the business community, the entrepreneurial community together. Because there's never been a better time.
Yeah.
So for me, entrepreneur, it's exciting. So, and I'm blessed to be able to work in a place where you're surrounded by optimistic people that are really working every day to help solve problems and connecting that to our business community, because innovation, it's exciting and it's never been a better time. So
That's amazing. You've had the double whammy. You had the tornado right on your back porch, and then we get hit with COVID. How has your business survived? What have you had to do?
You know, I think it was a blessing. Look, all things are happening for you. It was a blessing for me that the tornado came first, because we were already disrupted before COVID showed up in Nashville. We already had to make some changes. We were already looking to be outside of the box. When the rest of the world started having to be outside the box, we were ahead of the game. And so we began to be grateful for the tornado. I mean, we had 4 major trees laying on our house. And I think we probably had, you know, Germantown is like a tree sanctuary.
Yeah.
I think we probably had the oldest, probably magnolia in the neighborhood that got struck, you know, by the storm. And it stopped anyone from coming down 6th Avenue North, except for the people who needed cupcakes. Because they were crawling over the trees and saying, is there anything inside? What we realized at that moment was that we were essential. Because people needed comfort that they could control.
Yeah.
That all of the rest of their lives were out of control, but they could control, I want to get my sweet potato cupcakes. I mean, do you have any? And when I started seeing them knocking on the door and like pushing through leaves to get there, I said, oh, we've got to find a way to get the store up and running. And so by the time we got it back up and running, we were down about 10 days. I hopped on social media. I always do everything in front of everybody. Like, you know, it's like, look, we're going to do this together. And I hopped on social media and said, listen, I need a place. I need a place to make these cupcakes. And other bakers, other caterers started offering me their kitchens and saying, hey, come make them over here. Even if they were making cupcakes, they still like, come do them over here with me. And someone who had seen how I had been helping other people during the tornado got on the phone with his company at Tzatziki's and said, how can we help Mignon do pop-ups? And I just wanted 5 pop-up shops. They turned it into 9 locations. And so we were around the whole city with our cupcakes in every Tzatziki Mediterranean cafe around Middle Tennessee. I think there was only 1 that we weren't in of all of the ones that they have here. And so that's, when you say innovation, had this not happened, there would have been so much red tape that would have caused us not to, oh, that would be great if we could figure it out. You know, like
Right.
people are figuring out things that they normally wouldn't take the time to figure out. And so that not only raised their dessert number raised over 166% because they brought in the cupcake collection. So for those of you who are thinking about adding it, you know, it's a good thing. But it kept us in business.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kept us in business. And if we hadn't had it, I was, we were trying to figure out after the world started coming back, people, like, we're starting to see a little traffic now. People are getting back to work and things. Would we be able to continue to do this? And we were going over all the financials, and my CFO was like, "You're crazy if you stop. Like, I don't care if you have to bring them Mignon, Francois, you will continue to have cupcakes in other cafes." You know what I mean? So it's just like, like what you said, this has been the mother of innovation and invention. And people are opening doors that might have otherwise been shut. And so I'm so grateful that it took a tornado for us to realize that we needed to partner.
That's amazing.
Community.
Listen, I went to Taziki's and I saw them and I squealed. I was so excited. I was like, Mignon's cupcakes are here. Are you kidding? Yes, put them in the bag. Of course I want them. I'm so happy. That's amazing. So just because the world looks so different right now, Becca, how does that impact what you're seeing? I guess that would be
I think
a
I
big
want to
question.
just say back, because I'll answer that, but I've been thinking about the word disruption, and it comes from ruption. There's something's already ruptured. It's already broken.
Right.
So the disruption is basically, I think, a time to put stuff back together. Thank you. Yes.
Wow.
It was already, I've been really thinking about all these words that we're using, which come from something. Like, we didn't make this up. So this is historic, but it's not unprecedented. Disruption is not an unprecedented nature of who we are in business and what we are.
Wow.
But I also think on top of that, in my line of community and entrepreneurship and leadership and faith perspective, all of those things, is that interpreting what's happening around us is one of our jobs as leaders. We don't have to understand what COVID is. We don't have to understand the fires. We don't have to understand the tornadoes, all of that. But we get to interpret what is happening around that in our communities and helping people through that. And if you are doing that well and you're not grieving, you're not paying attention. There's plenty to grieve, whether it's loss of lives or loss of property or any of that those disruptions and now how we piece this stuff back together. I started off COVID with my friend Fiona and John Prine. And when he died, that was a huge loss and a huge way to kind of begin this journey. And when you're at Thistle Farms and people are masked in a huge community, some of those women were bound and gagged before. That is a trauma. And so for us to interpret and reinterpret and re-put things back together through a disruption is critical. And I would say to anybody that is still with us is that as leaders, there is a lot of positivity, there is a lot of that, but the disruption and pulling it back together requires some interpretation, amazing leadership, amazing idealism and faith and entrepreneurism and all that, but also sometimes just to be a voice that says, we're not just pivoting, we are digging deep to our roots, and we are growing something, and we are going to get through it. A pandemic is no time to quit. And you're that voice helping people kind of go through that. So I feel like I've been digging deep. I've been humbled. I've been doing all of those things that all of us are supposed to be doing. But, in my inside, in all honesty, I have a little bit of grief. Sure. And I respect that, and I know that that means that I love this community deeply, and I love people deeply, and so I honor it, and I will go ahead and keep going on it too. But I hope people keep digging and don't quit and know that this is a growing and coming back.
I love all of that. I love all of that. Hey, before we go away, I want to tell everybody, if you're watching us, thank you for being a part of this. But also, if you have questions for these amazing ladies, you can put them in the question and answer, and then we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So I'm going to bring out my phone. I'm not being rude. They're going to text me all the questions because that's the only way I can get them. Otherwise, I was like, don't hand me a piece of paper. We'll just text them. So we're going to do that in just a few minutes. But before we go, the one question that I want to leave you guys with, I believe that everything that everyone does comes from a place of their truth, that you have to find your truth before you can go on your journey, before you can take that next step and know what's out there for you. How did you find your truth, Shanna?
Really in that classroom. I can't tell you that education was never, it was never a thought. It was never a thought that I would have a career in education. And literally, I married my husband and he moved to Knoxville and I didn't have a job. And so I answered that ad and it forever changed my life. Because before, it was something I took for granted. And I truly always wanted to be a leader to make a difference, but never knew in what area that might be. And that's when I discovered education is powerful. You know, my dad was a first generation. He grew up in a very large and poor family, and he was the first to go to college. And I actually lost him this summer. So thinking of grieving, I immediately thought of my dad. But education meant everything to him. And I want it to mean everything to the students. They may not finish to get a degree, but if they come to Nashville State and I can make a difference in their lives that will forever change, not just the student, that I like to say, education changes their family, it changes our community. So for us to be strong, education has to be essential to be the entrepreneur and do it well, not just to have an idea, but to be able to carry it out. So for me, that purpose, that sense of this is what I'm supposed to be doing, goes down to making a difference through education for every single student that crosses my path.
Love that. All right, Jane, how did you find your truth?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't know that I found my truth. I mean, I think the truth continues to evolve, and sometimes you find your truth by looking backwards. And, you know, like you, I had a mother that made me believe I could be anything in the world. I remember saying I wanted to drop out of college and be Joan Jett. And it was like, okay, girlfriend, what do we have to do to make that happen? She didn't tell me I'm a terrible singer. It was like, what do you need to do to make that happen? So, having somebody that believed in you, and then I was a school teacher. And then I think we talked about faith. For me, it was prayer. And I would hear a voice. And I remember going to Byron Trauger, who another person I could clearly say, I've been blessed to work with amazing people. But I said, Byron, I've got this little seed inside of me. And I keep trying to cover it with dirt, but it keeps sprouting up. And I think if I don't follow that, I'm going to look back in 5 to 10 years and regret it. But would you hire me back if I fail? and he said yes. So that gave me the confidence. But more importantly, it gave me, okay, let's do this. And then I will say, when I had my company, every day I felt I was living out the purpose. Like I started my day with a prayer, and I felt I was living out a purpose. And then when you sell the company, all of a sudden I'm in the wilderness, and I keep waiting for the burning bush. And then when the EC knocked, it was a lot of prayer, and then it was like I started waking up at night. I wonder if they've tried this. I wonder if we've tried that. And I went from thee to we. And it was like, okay, I think this is part of it. So what is my truth? It keeps evolving, and I hope I keep being a better person, and I keep being more compassionate and empathetic and kind and welcoming people to the table. And I hope that I can live and be a light in this world. And I think hopefully it'll continue to evolve. And so that's a great question.
Did you have twins?
Did I have twins? I did not.
You had 3 under 3
I
and no
did.
twins.
And no twins, girlfriend. Yes. And started a business when the third was 6-month-old, 3 boys. And I always say I had 5 children, and the company was by far the most whiniest and the most needy. I had 4 amazing human beings, 3 boys, and then 5 years later, I was blessed with our little girl. And so she's my late in life bonus, which is one reason I'm at the EC. Because, she's she was 14 years old, and now she's 16. And, just amazing family. So blessed in so many ways. But, hopefully my truth continues to evolve and grow.
Just like an entrepreneur.
Hello.
That just all came full circle.
Thank you.
I
Oh.
love all of that. All right, Mignon, how did you find it?
Oh my gosh. I think I found my truth in trying.
Okay.
I didn't know how to bake, not even out of a box. All the recipes are mine. And they're award winning. We're ranked as the best cake in Tennessee, and we rank in the top 10 in the entire nation. And I didn't know how to bake. Like when you get those brown and serve rolls, like they're supposed to come out perfect, not mine.
Stop.
They're burned. And I think that I learned that there's this way, people say, I heard God say to me, and you're like, well, what? I don't even know what. God, please don't speak, because I think I would just die at the sound of your voice. But it doesn't come in your ear, it comes in your gut. And it tells you, people say listen to your heart, because that gut feel, your heart really exists, right here somewhere around that gut feeling. And I began to learn that it's a muscle, that when you exercise it, it's just like any other muscle. It gets stronger and it speaks louder. And if you will just try it, you will realize that that's the voice that's leading you. That it will even tell you not to get in traffic because it knows you hate traffic. So don't turn left right now. And if you turn left, dang it, traffic. It's not gonna be traffic. It's 1:00. And you learn to listen to every inkling of that voice when you know what it feels like or what it sounds like or the urging of it. And that was that urging that said, put on your shoes right now. Doesn't matter. You don't have to have enough. That's why I want people to know you don't have to have a computer. You can use a tablet. You don't have to have a tablet. You can use your phone. You don't have to have a phone. You can still use paper. Someone asked me what the greatest piece of technology was that I believe. I think it's a pencil. And you can still sharpen it. It allows you can use a knife to sharpen it. You can use a sharpener to sharpen it. But whatever it is, I believe that pencils teach us that it's what's on the inside that counts. That once you sharpen that pencil, that's when you can begin to write the vision. That's when what you need to use comes out. You can't use the pencil till it's been through something. It has to go through something. I had to learn that I had to go through something, and I had to listen to that voice. And when I learned to exercise that voice and that it wanted me to have whatever it was that I wanted, and that the dream that I had for myself, it wasn't my idea anyway. It was just funneled down to me. That's why when you see your thing, someone else is doing it, because God didn't have to ask you to do it. You've been chosen for it. And that's how you can find other people. You had the same idea I had, and we were living on a whole different continent or in a whole different city or a different state because you've been tasked with it. And I think if people would know, I think that's where I found the greatest truth, is that I wasn't responsible for the idea if it failed because it wasn't mine in the first place. I was just responsible to do the work to get it out. And so without thinking it was my idea, I worked for it harder.
Yeah.
As if I was working for someone else to do the thing they asked me to do. It's just like if I come to a party, I love to give this example. If we're going to an all-right party and Jane calls me on the phone and says, Mignon, I need you to wear red. I'm like, Jane, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You'll find out when you get there. Just wear red. I'm walking in the party, and everybody is like, why did you wear red? You better get out of here. It's the rule. Don't worry about it. I'm wearing red. I'm special. I would think I was special because Jane said, wear red. And I'd be waiting with expectation for what was going to happen to me. And that's where I found the truth, that we can wait with expectation for the things that we've been tasked to do.
Oh, I love that. And you got on red, too. It all comes together. She got the memo. Becca, how did you find your truth? When did it come to you, or do you feel like it's always been there?
I think I was I was born with longing in my heart. And that has been my truth. It's led me, it's kept me going. And I used to think maybe that'll go away. Married to an amazing man, Marcus Humman, for 32 years, have 3 boys, grown and doing stuff. And it's still a part of my life. And I know that it has kept me going and led me on my path and kept me in close communion with all kinds of stuff. But I know, from the very beginning, the greatest longing was about love, and that has been my truth. And it's on every product everybody's going to buy from Thistle Farms. If you want to do something about making justice a way of life, buy your soap from Thistle Farms. It's a very simple thing, and it changes lives. And on every product, it's love heals. And so my truth is that love is the most powerful force for change in the world. And I will keep living into that truth my whole life.
Oh, love that. Yes. Okay, so we're going to get to the question section. I know. I'm like, oh, goodness.
Don't let it be about shoes.
Now, Becca, I will say, when we had the company and it was early on, and you have to have a mission statement, you have to have all those things. And I start thinking about it, and so mine was really simple: put yourself in the other person's shoes. And then everyone, when we started hiring people, would get a shoe picture to put in their office. So, I mean, shoes has been connected in my life for a very long time. So when my husband, look, do you really need another pair of shoes? Oh, but honey, I do.
Listen.
It's part of who the company is.
I do have a one in, one out rule, though. If I get a new pair, a pair has to go out because I've only got so much shelf space.
Yeah.
But I do have them shoved in there real nice
I
and
was gonna
tight.
say, yeah, they're pretty
real
tight.
nice and tight.
And they can
That's
stack.
the opposite of my life.
I love
That's
it.
the opposite problem I have.
I need more of you, though. I need more of you.
No.
So we do have a question that came through, and I would love for you ladies to go around and just, freestyle it and tell me this. But what is the one regret that you have? I know. That's a deep one.
Mine is easy. Mine is I wish I had dreamed bigger sooner. That I think, I was never afraid of success. I think that was one of the questions. But I was held back by fear of failure sometimes. That I didn't want to, jeopardize what was already there to grow. But what we have is a big idea around a global movement for women's freedom.
Right.
And it took me a long time to be willing to dream bigger. And I wish I had done that sooner. I don't think it's a regret, but looking back, I think that growth that we have exponentially, that exponential growth could have started a little bit sooner, and more women could have come and been a part of the community.
Right. Shanna?
I don't think mine's professional. I think it's more personal. And I think all of us have that mother's guilt. And there are times I wish I had spent more time having lunch with my son when he was in elementary school. Because he would say, everybody else's mom comes to have lunch with them. And I just worked a little far away. So I'd literally have to take a half a day to have lunch with him. And I tried to make every ball game. I still do. He's in college. We've been driving 8 hours to go to games. So I don't think that he had a life without his mom, because I was always there. But taking a little bit more time for those moments that meant more to my kids. So I do think, we have a very close relationship, but when you're on that journey and you're thinking, okay, well, this would disrupt my day. I've got all this to do, and we'll do something at night. A few more lunches during elementary school, I think I have some regrets over that.
Oh, that just went to my heart because mine just started middle school. So last year was the last year to do that, and same. Yep, I understand that. Regrets? Anybody? Anybody else?
I think I've tried to live with the motto, don't live with regrets. And so, when my mother would get ill, get on a plane and get to my mom.
Yeah.
But in doing so, you're leaving behind the husband and the children. And so, again, as I said, I had 5 children in my mind, and the whiniest and the neediest was the company. And so while I think that our children and my husband have always been a priority in my life, I don't know that I've always shown that.
All right, Mignon.
I don't know. It's hard. I heard Fantasia sing a song.
Go ahead, sing it.
Okay. Later.
I'm with you.
She said it was necessary. And what I have decided and understand that there are no mistakes, that we don't know the plan for our lives anyway. So we go about our lives making plans for things that we have no clue of. And we think that we're doing things wrong, and they all were part of the ultimate plan to get you from where you are to where it is that you were supposed to be. And so, in fact, it was just necessary. So it's hard for me to say what are the regrets, because I see it all as necessary.
Ooh, I love that. All right, we've got another question. This one just came in. What advice would you give someone in a stable career looking to become an entrepreneur, I'm looking at you, Jane, how do you overcome risk aversion? That's a great question.
That is a wonderful question. And one thing, when I came into the Entrepreneur Center, and for those of you that are my age or around, like we take the ACT test back in high school, and you fill in bubbles. And the bubbles showed that I should be a teacher and a lawyer. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. And so we've created this online test so you think you want to be an entrepreneur. Because again, some people are wired for it and some people are not. And so I do think the reality is entrepreneurs are risk takers and they're problem solvers. And I think it's one of those where if you really see a problem, a gentleman in our community had me read a book recently called Acres of Diamonds. And it's an old book, and it's a very simple book, but it's fabulous. But it's, do you see the problems for which you can create solutions? And it might be people just need really good cupcakes to give them comfort. And that's a big deal. Hello, a real big deal. It's the reason I have the COVID-19 right on me. But it's, again, I think that it's that. And then I think if you're in a stable career, we actually have a program called Pre-Flight. And I say it's for people that haven't quit their day job yet.
Okay.
And so they can come in, and it's a 14-week program. And it allows you to take that idea that's solving a problem and work through. And by the end, I think you're going to know whether you really are wired to do this or whether, you know what, I am really blessed to have that stable career. And so I think that that's part of what we try to do, is to help people figure out, is this the right step? And is this the right path? Because I would say it's not for everybody. But for those that it is, I would say, why not? And so, again, it's never been a better time. But I think our pre-flight program is a really good way to get in and see, before you quit your day job, whether this is really what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh, I love that.
Can I offer a
Sure.
different perspective for that person who's afraid to take the risk and decide if they want to be an entrepreneur? I believe that entrepreneurship is true freedom. And, I will speak always for entrepreneurship and the Entrepreneur Center. But I want to offer this bit of perspective. Rabbi Daniel Lapin says it like this in his book. You are already in business. I just think the difference is, how many clients do you want to take on? Because everybody is an entrepreneur. It's just that you are in the business of your labor. So you're bringing your company, that is yourself, and the product that you offer, it is your labor, and your client is the one company that you work for. Your job is to handle the clients of your client, that one bigger company. So if I work for Kroger, that is my client, and let's say I'm a cashier there, I handle the inventory for my client Kroger, making sure that all of his items are accounted for so that the receipts can be turned into his accountant, and making sure that all of his clients are happy when they leave out of the store. That's the business that I'm in, my labor. And so when you realize that no matter what, you're in business, it just depends on how many clients do you want to take on. You might not be so afraid to take on more clients.
It's so great that you said that, and it just sparked something. My dad always told me, he said, every minute of your life, you're selling it to someone. Mm-hmm. So you better name the price and make sure that it's worth it, because that's a minute you don't get back. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I see that. And the fact that you just said, how many clients do you want to take on? It also, I think, helps people understand that our entrepreneurs, you are the business. And that's when you start to hear, like sometimes you hear artists talk about themselves in third person. Mm-hmm. They almost have to, because they have to see themselves as the business, not as the person.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I absolutely love that. Mm-hmm. We love the fact that all these questions are coming in. Anyone else want to join in on this?
I did a good job.
Well, a question that I have is, how do you know when it's time to take that next step? Like Mignon, you said, just focus on the step that's in front of you. And I think there might be some people that are watching right now. They've started, they're doing okay, they're above water. How do you know when it's okay to hire help, to take it to the next step, to open the next franchise location? How can you gauge that? Are there indicators?
Sure. I mean, that's what we do at the Entrepreneur Center, is we actually connect entrepreneurs to the resources they need to increase the probability of success. And so part of that is through the programming, part of it is through mentoring and advising. We have a group of successful entrepreneurs who have all exited that give their time to help the next generation, and it creates this circle of giving, because we've all been in their shoes. Back to shoes, Becca, it's all about the shoes. But we've all been in their shoes. And so we've all been, whether you're at 100,000 trying to get to 500,000, or 500,000 to $1 million, or $1 million to 5, and 5 to 10, and then you're thinking, are you kidding? Is this going to go on forever? Because, but we've all been there. And so it really is about connecting them so that they hear more than one voice. But I would also say they've got to listen to their inner voice. And for me, that's faith, and really understanding, and then surrounding yourself with people that are not going to be just yes people, but people that are going to ask difficult questions and push you and make you uncomfortable. I think that's really important. So that's part of what we do, and then creating a community of peers at the same time. So, that's one reason I'm at the EC, is trying to allow people to have access to the resources and programs, and making sure that they're going to hear all the different voices. But ultimately, it's their voice that they need to listen to.
I would say for Thistle Farms, it is that, but it's a little bit different because, when Forbes magazine put the article out not too long ago about us and said the reason we're so successful is we're a mission with a business, not a business with a mission. Mm-hmm. And when you start with mission, for us, and I've started really talking about the way we do stuff and all the organizations we work with that we help are partnered with, is that it's really justice enterprise, not social enterprise. And when I say justice enterprise, the mission is the workforce. The mission is the workforce. So for us, it is growth, because if it's not growth, then you're going to continue to have a large waiting list. Right. So sometimes it's easier if the mission defines the business. You're not coming up with a mission afterwards. I mean, in other words, I didn't go, I need to hire some women because I really want to make these candles. The women were there, and it happened that candles or essential oils or whatever it was were the products that we were offering. And when the mission is the driving force for the business, those questions get answered kind of organically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to take it from a perspective of leadership and professional development and growth, not being the entrepreneur, and both of you hit on something I think is important. I tell people all the time, because I'm sure you get asked, will you mentor me? Will you mentor me? And because I've been mentored and still am and have sponsors, I always say yes and try to make myself available. Wow, but I'm always telling them to let the work drive them, not the money. Because in higher ed, often they go, well, I have this degree and that degree, and I should be making X by now. And it's but you're focused on the title, you're focused on the money, you're not focused on the work. And so let's get the work right, get the passion, the mission, and then all those other things will come. And I will have to say that it was never about getting to the next job for the paycheck. It was about, let me do this job really well, because at a point you get to, when is it time for me to start looking? And I think once you feel like I've fulfilled my purpose, I've done what I can do at this stage, it's time for me to either expand it where I am and try to seek a way to do that, or it's time for me to look for some other way to contribute. But I just think it's really important for people to know, if you're setting yourself on a timeline, in 3 years I ought to be here, and in 5 years I ought to be there, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure, unless that inner voice is giving you a time and has a clock at the same time, that it organically happens. And I feel like that's been my career. There wasn't a set time for me to go to the next stage. it happened, but it was always about the work and what was I contributing to the organization? How was I helping to move forward the mission, and not how much did the next job pay? So I wanted to say that both of those things that you just spoke of when it comes to entrepreneurship, for people that are always seeking the next, why? And then having people to say, you're not ready and this is why, and not be yes people. Because you surround yourself with people saying, yes, you should have gotten that job. I can't believe they didn't select you.
Right.
And then that starts feeding something that is unhealthy for you. So if you let the work motivate you, the rest will happen.
I got to tell you, there's a line in one of my favorite songs, chase after the dream, don't chase after the money. And I'm like, there it is, there it is. All right, lady, how did you decide to open New Orleans?
I decided to open New Orleans because I had gone through a divorce. My life was different. And my friends were like, look, Mignon, you can't like stay home for the rest of your life and just like be buried in it. So I decided to go home to New Orleans. I think it was 2015. And it was the Bayou Classic. And I had never been to the Bayou Classic before, even though I grew up in New Orleans. And so I decided to go to the Bayou Classic. We had front row, 50-yard line seats. Wow. And going around and eating and doing all this stuff, we walked into this place that had donuts. Now, I'm a donut connoisseur. Now, everywhere we go, we must eat donuts because we already got cake on lock. So we have to eat donuts. Not that there's not room for other. Well, that wasn't the place that there was a place that had a donut that was iconic to our culture in New Orleans. And so we had grown up on these buttermilk drops. And so I asked the girl at the counter, is that a real buttermilk drop? Because the place that made those famous was McKenzie's, and McKenzie's had gone like around Katrina. Right. And so this was like 13 years past. So she goes, I mean, I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, I guess. I mean, they make them really good here, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
I was so mad.
I bet you were. I got
was
mad
so-
right for you.
Yeah, I was so mad at that answer. I'm like, how are you selling
Yes.
something that is our culture and you don't know what it is? And all the people working there looked like they were cast in the movie to work in New Orleans at a place that sold donuts. Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
They were beautiful. It was beautiful. The experience was going to be beautiful. But she didn't know what a
It
buttermilk
wasn't
drop
real.
was.
It wasn't real.
And so I sat in that place just livid and said, that's it. I can't get angry about the climate if I do nothing about it. If I do nothing to contribute, then whatever we get is what we have.
Yep.
And I knew that after Katrina spread our flavor all over the world. And I wanted to go home to be a part of the story that made me who I am. I always say this, I was New Orleans raised, but I was Nashville made. Because this place couldn't have been done anywhere but Nashville. Nashville's the place you come to make business. I mean, this is where businesses are born. And, so I believe I had to be here, and then I could take it home. And I wanted to be a part. There's so much beautiful about New Orleans in the food scene, and I felt like it was like New York for a singer or an actress, or Nashville for a musician. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I felt like if I could make it on the food scene in New Orleans, and that they could respect it and love it and say that it was good, then I could take this thing anywhere. And so that was my goal, is to see if it was only a place that could live where businesses are born, or did it have the legs to walk around the entire country? And I think I'm learning that we can go across the entire country.
It's got legs. I love it. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. You're both, all of you are just incredible in your own right. And thank you for spending the time and giving back, because I think that there are people on the other side of this that are hearing these words and writing them down and taking them to heart. Also, a thank you to our sponsors, PNC Bank, presenting sponsor, also Thistle Farms and Postmates, in partnership with Bright Event Productions. Y'all did a great job. Thank you so much for making us sound and look good. Hosted by the beautiful L.A. Jackson right here in the Thompson Hotel. Y'all need to come up here because it's really, really pretty. And we want to let everybody know, coming up, excerpts from today's discussion are going to be featured in the winter issue of the Nashville Post magazine. So y'all need to subscribe. If you're not subscribing, you're not going to get it. But if you subscribe, it comes right to your mailbox. You don't even have to leave the house, and it's going to be out in mid-November. You know you want to get in on that. So thank you so very much. It's so great to see you. Y'all have a blessed day. The most powerful women right
Thank
here
you.
in Nashville. You guys are great.